probably looking at me like, what in the world? But hey, it's true. Hello, I am somewhere in Tennessee. Today, I kind of want to talk to you guys about how going car free has impacted me and led to me living my most authentic life. How it's led to me being my most authentic self. I guess I should start this off by saying that I have always been a little bit base. Okay, just base. I did this whole deep dive onto Reddit today where there was a thread with people debating what the word based actually meant. I still don't know that I know what based means. I see it quite a bit here on YouTube, like in comments, under videos, or somebody will say something and the reply will be based. But like, what does that even mean? According to Reddit, the general consensus is that based is a word you would use to describe somebody that just doesn't give a bleep. Someone that is just genuinely and authentically themselves. I don't know if that's the definition of it or not, but that's the one that I'm gonna go with. Yeah. Yeah, that's what I'm gonna go with. So when I say based, that's what I'm going for. Because let me tell you now, when it comes to being based, it doesn't get any baser than me. More based. Anyway, moving on. I've always been one of those people that marches to the beat of their own drum, often to my mother's dismay. Like, I have no issue being the odd one out or the quirky one or sticking out like a sore thumb, right? Like, I've done that my whole life. I've always been fiercely independent in my thinking, in my opinion, particularly with my way of living. In my early 20s, I found minimalism and I pretty much got rid of every single thing that was not an absolute necessity in my life. I did furniture free living for a while. I slept on the floor for many a year. And I remember it getting so bad at one point that my lovely niece, looked at me and she was like, I think you're losing it. No, I definitely wasn't losing it. I've always been profoundly sane, but I don't mind challenging the status quo. Still to this day, all of my clothing fits in one backpack. I don't know if you've paid attention to my videos, but you generally see me always wearing a black t-shirt and a pair of black shorts. That is because that's it. That's all I got. Okay, I got a multi-pack of these shirts off of Amazon for like 20 bucks. I think it was 20 bucks for a 6-pack or something, and a couple of pairs of shorts that I got from Walmart. And yes, I do own a few other items of clothing. I have a couple of different shirts that I bust out from time to time. I have a little bit of clothing for work. I got about 10 pairs of drawers, so that's good. But literally all of it can be contained in one single backpack. And no, this is not a big backpack either. It's a regular sized backpack. You're probably looking at me like, what in the world? But hey, it's true. I decided a long time ago that I did not want my worth to be tied up in material possessions or in the brand of clothing that I wore. There have been times in my life where I lived very abundantly, and there have been times in my life where I've lived with next to nothing. It kind of reminds me of that scripture at Philippians chapter 4, verses 11 and 12, where, the apostle Paul, I believe it was saying that he has learned to live content in every situation. And that is definitely me. That has been the goal. And yes, that has oftentimes put me at odds with the society around me, with the social norm. But baby, that's okay. That's okay. One monkey don't stop no show. But even someone like me, someone as absolutely based as I am, still has some struggles when it comes to material possessions. And what I mean by that is, I just recently started my journey of being car free. It's been close to 2 months now. But the reality of it is, I wanted to do this years ago. I literally remember being 21, 22, and I used to go around saying that one of my whole or biggest goals in life would be to get myself to a situation where I did not have to own a car, whether that be moving to a city with better public transit or just letting it go and making do wherever I happen to be. But it took me literally 15 years. I'm 36 now. And like I said, I have been talking about this and wanting to do this since I was like 21. So, what took me so long? It was so easy for me to let go of pretty much everything when it came to material possessions. But why did I hold on to the car for so long? Let's talk about it. I live in the United States, and unfortunately, the US is very car centric, especially here in the South. Everything is so spread out, and if you do not live in a major city, you could be miles away from the closest grocery store, hospital, school, etc. So, in some ways, a car is a necessity. It's something that could be looked at as an absolute essential in different parts of the United States. But then there's also kind of the social norm surrounding cars, right? Because I still think that we tend to base our judgments of people off of their material possessions, off of the brand of car that they drive, the size of the house that they live in, the brand of clothing that they wear. And as easy as it was for me to adjust to going pretty much brandless with my clothing and giving up a lot of material possessions, the hardest thing for me to give up was definitely the car. There have been times in my life where I absolutely needed a car, no doubt. But there have also been times where I could have made do without one. So, what took me so long? I think that part of the answer definitely lies in the ways that I've had to defend myself since I decided to go car free. When something is a social norm in a given area and you go against that, there can be some backlash or at the very least a questioning of why you're doing what you're doing. Sometimes you get comments of, oh, you don't have a car. I think that's doubly true though when you have a family or when you have small kids. People are just not going to understand. But that's okay. That's okay. Because, yes, even though I have dealt with some criticism about going car free, I have also gotten a whole lot of support. Support and just affirmation that I'm doing the right thing for me. But honestly, if you're following your own inner voice and you are living as authentically as possible, it doesn't really matter what other people say or the ways in which they criticize you. Part of this journey for me was that I wanted to be as climate conscious and eco friendly as possible. I know that we are facing a catastrophic climate crisis, and a lot of this has to do with consumerism, with just the sheer amount of consumption that we are doing. The way that we live here in the United States is definitely not sustainable, and I wish that we would quit pretending that it was. Because if we don't face this issue head on, if we don't start looking at ways to shrink our carbon footprint, then it's over. We only get one Earth, and it's important that we take care of it and that we realize that our natural resources are finite. They are limited. And when they're gone, they're gone. I've taken several assessments just evaluating my individual carbon footprint, and one of the easiest ways that it showed that I could reduce my carbon footprint would be by changing my mode of transportation. I've definitely wanted to do that for some time. And now that I've made that change, I feel better about myself. I don't like to judge other people based upon their lifestyle choices, but I am a fierce judge when it comes to myself. And I know that I'm going to have to answer to myself. Switching over finally from using a car for transportation to going car free has really helped my mental health. It's reduced my stress levels. Part of the reason why is because I am being more active now. I'm getting more physical exercise, starting to lose some of this chub, which, alhamdulillah, that's a blessing in itself. No, but seriously, it really is. I want to be more active. I want to not be so sedentary. And making that switch to an e bike, even, I'm definitely seeing those benefits. And because I'm seeing those benefits, I tend to feel more positive. I am less stressed out. I am getting more exercise. And I'm outside more. I've always been one of those people that loves nature. I am such an outdoors kind of person. I love camping, kayaking, anything having to do with water. Yes, even though that's always been my thing, I've noticed since going over to an e bike that I'm outside every day. I'm outside more consistently. And that has definitely helped my mental health. While we're on the topic of stress, one of the biggest stressors for most people would be finances. It's money. And I have definitely seen the benefits to my wallet since I have made the switch from using a truck every day to being car free. You know, the average cost in the United States of car ownership per year is something around $10,000 per car. Now that is a big piece of change, okay? You know, when you think about everything from your car payments to your insurance, your gas, maintenance, tires, repairs, that is a lot of money. And it feels good now to not have to worry about that. Yes, I spent a good chunk of change up front getting my e bike and getting it set up, but that's pretty much it for me. I don't have just a huge recurring cost there. And also, you have to look at it from the standpoint of, when it comes to repairs, repairing a bike is a lot cheaper of an endeavor than repairing a car. To give you an example, just the other day, my wife had a flat tire on the rear of her bike. Thankfully, we already had bought a pack of inner tubes. They were $8 a piece, and literally spending $8 and applying a little bit of elbow grease, and that was it. She was able to ride her bike again. Now, when it comes to a flat tire on a car, it's a little bit more expensive of an endeavor. And it definitely takes a lot more elbow grease. But even just the difference in my stress level handling that situation versus what it's been like when I've had a flat tire on the car, two totally different things. And the bike was just so much easier to deal with. You know, sometimes when you make lifestyle changes that you really want to, you're going against the social norm. You're going against societal norms. You're kind of going against everything that's considered average or normal around you. And that requires a real sense of self. But let me tell you this, it is worth it. It is worth it to be your most authentic self, even if you face criticism of the people that you love or the people around you. It is okay to march to the beat of your own drum, even if nobody else understands the rhythm. Now, there's a quote by Henry David Thoreau that comes to mind. If a man does not keep pace with his companions, perhaps it is because he hears a different drummer. Let him step to the music which he hears, however measured or far away. I absolutely love that quote, and I have carried it close to my heart my entire life. There is definitely something to be said about people that are not afraid to be different. You know, here in the US, we definitely have this culture where we put value on people based upon their material possessions. We see individuals and we make snapshot judgments of them based upon the clothes that they're wearing, the size of their house, the type of car that they drive. And I feel like that has to stop because those things are not who you are. And when you're stripped of all that, what then? What's left? Who are you when it's all gone? There are a few things that humans actually need to live and to be happy. And when you think about your immediate needs, those are food, clothing, shelter, water, and some form of transportation. And there's nothing inherently wrong with having any of those things. But I think where we get it wrong is we forget their purpose and we forget their proper place in our lives. There's nothing wrong with clothing, okay? Clothing serves a functional purpose. That purpose is literally to cover our nakedness and to provide some type of environmental protection. But how much is truly necessary? How much clothing do you really need? I've always said, you can't wear but one pair of pants at a time. I don't know. Maybe you can. Maybe you can wear multiple pair. I don't know why you'd want to, unless you live like in the Arctic or something. But I feel like, especially now, given the climate crisis that we're facing, we need to start reevaluating what is actually a necessity. How much is truly necessary? There's nothing wrong with having a house, but what is the purpose of a house? It is for comfort and shelter from the environment around us. Now, I was looking up some information about how house sizes have grown over the decades, And that information was pretty cool. Did you know that in Hong Kong, the average house size is 484 square feet? In the UK, the average house size is 818 square feet. And then here in the US, the average home size is 2,100 and some change square feet. How much space, how much shelter is truly necessary? And when it comes to transportation, the whole point of transportation is that you can get yourself from point A to point B. That mode of transportation does not have to be super expensive or super fancy, but we treat cars like status symbols oftentimes. But prior to the 1910s and 1920s, cars were not the primary mode of transportation. I think we should definitely all reevaluate the place of these things in our lives. And I'm not saying that you can't have it, but maybe we give them too much priority. Maybe we ascribe to them too much importance. I will say though, back to me being based, I have been based since birth. It's always interesting to look at humans and how much childhood and experiences and adulthood plays into creating this complex, multidimensional human. Because we are all so unique and we are all so multifaceted. And it's intriguing to just see how life has made us who we are. A little bit of background info on me. I was raised with a pretty firm belief that material things had their place. My parents were very conservative Christians. They're Jehovah's Witnesses. Although I'm not a Jehovah's Witness now, I definitely grew up with this mindset that material things had their place, that they were not most important, that yes, they have value to you, and yes, they are useful, but that is not the primary focus in life. And in my adult life, I've gone on to study all of the world's major religions. Religion and history are two things that I have always been curious about. That is one of my natural passions. And I wanted to learn as much as I could. And when I tell you that I have studied all of the world's major religions, yeah, pretty much all of them. Whether it be the many denominations of Christianity, there I've literally studied everything from Baptists, Presbyterians, Methodists, Catholics, but also I've studied Islam, Hinduism, Buddhism, Sikhism, because I've always personally believed that there is more in common there than what we realize. That there are core messages that are present through each of those religions. That there are little gold threads that connect them in a beautiful way. And one of those threads happens to be how those religions view material possessions, how they view money. Whether you're Christian or not, you've probably heard that old saying that the love of money is the root of all evil. That is actually a scripture. It's 1 Timothy chapter 6 verses 10. All throughout the New Testament, we see these examples of Jesus and the first Christians really going out and ministering, feeding, clothing, providing for the poor and the outcasts in society. And I think that the important thing is to be content no matter whatever the material situation is. Because money, things, they come and they go. But we also, we come and we go. And our identity as a person should not be tied into what we own. Or better yet, what owns us. To quote Thoreau again, he has this saying that the price of anything is the amount of life that you give for it, the amount of life that you exchange for it. And in the end, is it really worth it to spend those hours of your life to pay for it? And then you have Islam. In Islam, one of the 5 pillars is the concept of Zakat. If you're not familiar with Zakat, Zakat is basically almsgiving. So a certain percentage of your wealth or your income is supposed to be given to charity, specifically to help the poor, the needy, the outcast. That concept definitely resonated with me because I feel like here in American culture, we have this whole idea that we are supposed to work hard, climb the ladder, advance, see advances in our income, and just this general idea that our wealth and our money is strictly for us. We kind of hoard things for ourselves, for our individual families. We definitely live in a society of me, me, me. And the concept of zakat is one of opening your hands and giving to the world around you. It's beautiful. There's also this hadith in Islam that really resonated with me as well. And it is be in this world as a traveler on a path. I love this idea simply because, when you think about traveling, when you think about going on a trip or going on vacation, you tend to pack pretty lightly. You carry enough with you to fit in a bag or two because to bring anything more than that would be very cumbersome. We tend to throw our essentials in a bag, our hygienic items, some clothing, enough to see us through, and we try to travel as lightly as possible. I think where we run into trouble is that in our day to day lives, the majority of us try to drag the whole house with us. We end up with all this excess and with more than what we really need. So the idea of living as a traveler, it makes you focus on this idea of impermanence. It makes you think about what the necessities really are. What do I want to carry with me on this journey? How can I live and walk as lightly as possible on this earth? And not only that, but what kind of legacy do I want to leave behind? How do I want people to remember me? These are questions that we should be asking ourselves every single day, and let that be our guiding light as we map out our lives. Another concept that has really resonated with me my entire adult life is the Buddhist concept of non-attachment. And what that basically means is not putting emotional or spiritual attachment on material possessions, on relationships, on anything really, because we do live in a state of impermanence. I've always been fascinated by the Buddhist monks and the way that they choose to live their lives. They live these very austere yet rich existences. You also see that with the Catholic nuns and priests as well, where they kind of abandon all material possessions and live in solidarity and community with one another. When I was like 20 or 21, I ran across this movie called Into the Wild, which tells the story of a young man named Christopher McCandless. Christopher was a real person, and he was raised in a pretty wealthy family in the suburbs. And shortly after Chris graduated college, he just walked off, literally took all of his money in his savings account, donated it to charity, and pretty much lived as a hobo for the following 2 years of his life. I watched that movie and I was absolutely fascinated with the Chris McCandless story. And I was beside myself when I realized that it was a true account and that there had been a book written about him. So I bought the book, I read everything in it, and was so inspired by this young man. And trust me when I say the public opinion about Christopher McCandless is a wild and varying thing. I think it's one of those stories where you either get it or you don't. But something in Christopher's story definitely resonated with me. But anyway, I bought the book, I read the book, devoured the book, and there were so many quotes in there from Leo Tolstoy and from Henry David Thoreau. And this became like a meandering journey for me because I wanted to read all of the books that those quotes had come from. I sat there and ordered and read War and Peace by Leo Tolstoy, Anna Karenina, and I read pretty much everything that's been published by Henry David Thoreau. My favorite has to be Walden, but also Civil Disobedience. I was definitely intrigued to find the connection between Henry David Thoreau and Mahatma Gandhi because Mahatma Gandhi credited Thoreau for his whole stance on nonviolent resistance. They definitely shared also some similar viewpoints on material possessions and on wanting to live as simply as possible, which kind of set me on this whole journey of living as simply as possible as well. So I ask you again, who are you when all those material possessions are stripped away? Who is your most authentic self? When you get to the end of your life, the end of your journey on this earth, what would have mattered to you the most? Would it have been your family? Would it have been your car? Would it have been your things? Would it have been your career? Whatever the answer is for you, Make sure that you're living your life, your day to day life, in a way that matches up with that. Put your time and your energy on what's most important to you. And yes, that may mean that you end up pedaling a bike. That may mean that you end up wearing a nameless shirt like me. But I don't know what y'all think. I don't think I'm that bad. Tuh, I'm not that bad. I, I might be that bad. I just might be. But it's okay. We all have to live our truth. We all have to find our way. But we should always be questioning, always searching, always examining our lives. What role does materialism, consumerism, and capitalism play in your life? Is there room to free yourself up from those traps? Can you be your most authentic self? Or does the court of public opinion sway you? Let me know in the comments. Well, anyway, I hope y'all made some sense out of what all I was trying to say there, because it was definitely a mouthful. I had to record this video 3 different times. 3, which is nuts. I started out here with my camera and realized halfway through the video that I had not pressed record. Then I got irritated with the camera. I was like, forget this. So I pulled out my cell phone, started recording, and realized that my little mic had died. On my third and final attempt, my son brought me my second little mic up here, and I hope it's worked. I hope it's worked. Because I tell you what, if it didn't work or not, I'm just going to upload the video and y'all going to have to catch me outside about it. No, just play. I hope that you're well. I hope that you're taking care of yourself. I hope that you are living your most authentic life. You can always find me somewhere in Tennessee. Bye.